we've gone to great lengths to try to keep this as abbreviated as we possibly can, but still get you the pertinent information that you need to take back to your bodies and to have discussions within your own jurisdictions. The next person that I'm going to ask to speak is Daryl Anderson. Daryl Anderson is an auxiliary or a reserve major with the Stark County Sheriff's Office, and he's the guy that I contacted and said, look, we need to do this in Stark County. I introduced him to the commissioners, and not once have we thought that we picked the wrong guy for this task, because this guy has made sure that we did it, and we did it right. And so with that, I'll introduce Daryl Anderson.
Thank you, sir. And all those kind words are done for unless I'm done in like 35 to 40 minutes. So we're going to move right along. I can tell you that I'll be talking at a speed that'll probably bore some of you because you're in tune with the project, and maybe buffalo others because you're taking it in like drinking from a fire hose. Not pun intended. But there's contact information on the back. You can always get a hold of us for more information. So here's the agenda. Mr. Nichols. All right, here's the agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about the history, why we had to get here, the cost, which is important to all of us, what we've done with Motorola, who's the prime system program manager, how we contracted with the state of Ohio Marcs, where we're at on our infrastructure, our scheduled coverage testing, which is later this month, the go-live timelines, which is important to all of you to know what your responsibilities are from now through the beginning of January, so that by the first week of January we have almost all, if not everyone, on the new system on the platform. So, and that includes next steps. So if you want to hit another one there, sir, we'll just keep right on with it. So the history of the situation is, and most of you in public safety knows this, Stark County does not have one integrated radio system that serves the needs of all our public safety forces. On the other hand, back in the early 2000s, Stark County commissioners, the city of Canton, started joining together on what is our current 800 megahertz legacy radio system that now many of you are on, but not all folks. It is at the end of its useful life. It's a copper wire switch-based technology that literally is at the end of its life, and it's not going to be supported after the first of the year other than best efforts. So we're not in a situation where we can have a radio system that might work and might get repaired. So about 4 years ago now, the commissioners and the sheriff started working on what is the logical next step so that we can maintain a radio system that not only works, but let's take the next step and let's get a radio system that works for everybody in the county. That led to the inevitable results of standing up a 700, 800 megahertz P25 platform, which is the state-of-the-art for public safety communications in the world. It will provide us state-of-the-art technology and will maximize our ability to interoperate with each other. Now, what interoperate means, and there was no such term like that until September 12, 2001, that means if I'm at a scene where John Witt III is at the other end of the scene and we need to talk to each other, I can steer my radio so I can talk directly to him, or he can steer his radio to talk directly to me, although I think we'd have to all agree that given Witt III's operations, it will all go to MomaQ, which has got to be the most resonating talk group in the history of the state of Ohio Marcs. So
it's original.
It is, there's no doubt about it. We had two options. We could build our own system, and that would meet the needs of our taxpayers and our users, or we could partner with the state of Ohio's multi-agency radio communication system, which is Marcs, and up there in the yellow shirt, Dick Miller, who's the operations manager and the field commander for Marcs. Dick, you want to wave or something so everybody knows you're here, and we appreciate you coming up. Notice he works for the state of Ohio, but it's 5 o'clock at night, and he doesn't live in Stark County, so that's kind of indicative of his commitment to what we're doing. Next slide, sir. Thanks for being here, Dick. All right, so here's the options. We could have built our own system. We could have built or equipped 18 to 20 towers. It would have taken 3 to 4 years to do it. It would have cost us $20+ million to do what we needed to do to have the system we need, and it would have cost us $3 to $4 million a year to maintain it. Now, Plan B was to partner with the state of Ohio Marcs, stand up 12 sites in the county, 3 of which are existing Marcs sites, build an additional tower down in Minerva. We'll talk a little bit more. And one of the benefits of that is We are surrounded by Marcs sites and the other counties around us, and the nine counties around us. It cost us a little bit less than $12 million for the project versus the 20 plus. And we have no annual upkeep. That's Marcs' responsibilities. That's why we pay the user fees to Marcs, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And it'll be their responsibility to maintain the towers. Then, as the sheriff talked about, we secured the income stream for the funding, and that was through the Justice System Sales Tax Early Renewal. It got us very good rates for the bonding of the system, and away we went. So May 2017 was really the, okay, let's move out date that we've worked with ever since then. We signed a contract with Motorola on June 17, 2018. It's their responsibility to build or retrofit 12 towers. They're providing us 18 MCC 7500 sophisticated radio consoles for the 3 big dispatch centers in the county. They're required to do comprehensive coverage testings to prove that the radio system will work as designed and, if you will, advertised. And they're responsible for programming all new radios. So what that means to the end users is if you bought radios from Motorola or JVC Kenwood in the last year to year and a half, then part of the project for the Motorola radios is to program those radios. If you have existing radios and they have to be reprogrammed, then you'll have to pay some programming fees. But if they're new radios, and I know a lot of the fire services got the grant money from the fire marshal, all those radios will be programmed as part of the project. So the total cost of the project is $11,962,321, and that's not kidding, Dick Miller. That is an actual figure. The consoles cost us a little bit under $1 million. The towers, the project managed, the coverage, the transition, the programming, a little more than $10 million. And then the commissioners obviously have to pay for the sheriff's radios, and that's about $887,000. Every radio and every sheriff's car and every portable radio that are on our frontline deputies will be brand new. We were able to negotiate a very steep discount with Motorola for those radios. Those discount numbers are still good. If you're still thinking about buying radios or your budget says, well, we got to wait till the end of this year, I would buy them sooner than later, because sooner or later Motorola is going to say, well, this price isn't going to stay. Now, an asterisk there, we all know that we have a vendor in the county that sells JVC Kenwood radios. They're at a very competitive price. It's a good, solid company, and I know some of you have JVC Kenwood radios, so that's your other option. Marcs. We started formal discussions with the State of Ohio Multi-Agency Radio Communication System in February of 2017. Marcs, if you will, took the lead in partnering with us, just as they've taken the lead in partnering with, Dick Miller, help me out here, every large metropolitan type county in the state. So Stark County is one of the last large metropolitan counties that has partnered with Marcs, but we're certainly not the exception. We are the rule. And it makes a lot of sense. The cost of the project goes down significantly. For example, we did not spend $1.5 million for our own zone controller. Now, all the zone controller is a central computer that all the towers are tied to. So instead of spending that $1.5 million, we simply said to Marcs, and Marcs said, let's do it. We're using their zone controller that's located up in Lake County. So that saved us $1.5 million there. And of course, didn't cost Marcs anything other than probably, 17 additional kilowatts of electric a month. So it's simply good public policy. We'll have better coverage and capacity because we are sharing those Marcs towers that are around the outside of the county. Marcs folks, and of course there's a good Marcs presence in the county. Raise your hand if you're on the current Marcs system. John Bacon, raise your hand. So John Bacon's on the system. He will have better coverage and better capacity because right now his radios have to hit the tower at AEP. When we turn the system on, most of his radios will hit the tower up on Cromer Hill. So better coverage and capacity for all, and of course the Highway Patrol is a big user in Stark County, so they'll benefit also. And then finally, it minimizes costs for maintaining the infrastructure. Marcs has the best cost, if you will, maintenance cost in the United States as far as per unit maintenance, and we benefit from that. We worked real hard to make sure that we had all the T's crossed and I's dotted, and we signed the final document. The commissioners did on the 11th July of this year, which is just a couple months ago, and this is a miracle, Dick Miller. I got to thank you for this. The DAS director, who's Dick's ultimate boss, signed it a week later. That's never happened in the history of the state of Ohio, but it did this time. So thank you very much for that. Now, what will happen then? The first thing, or the next cost benefit is effective January 1st, 2019, when we go on the system and start paying the Marcs maintenance costs. Marcs will take over all maintenance and repair and upgrades of all those towers. So while there's 12 towers in Stark County, 9 new ones, we, the Stark County taxpayers, will not be saddled with that $2, $3, $4 million a year maintenance cost. That's all on Marcs. And of course, they won't have to pay $3 or $4 million more because for them it's an incremental increase in maintenance. This next bullet point is in dark black and it's italicized and it's underlined. If you don't pay attention to anything else that we're talking about today, pay attention to this. Marcs charges every user in the state of Ohio $20 a month, flat rate, for every radio on the system. Period. End of conversation. In Stark County, from January 1st, 2019, when we get the first bill, to December 31st, 2022, the Stark County Commissioners will pay the user fee for every public safety radio in the county. Period. No exceptions, no maybes, no nothing. Public safety radio. If you have a public safety radio on the system, the user fees is paid by the Board of Commissioners. And Dick Miller, correct me if I'm wrong, that's the first instance of that in the state of Ohio, where the commissioners stepped up and said, let's do this for everybody for the good of the order. So, question. It's July 1st, 2020, and you get a bill from Marcs. What do? You're right, throw it away. Or you can make a PDF of it and send it to the commissioners, because they're going to be paying it. You will get no bills from Marcs until on or about January 1st, 2023. Any questions on that? Any objections to that?
Can I hear an amen?
That's right. All right. Go ahead. By the way, we're going to take questions at the end as we have time. So here's the overview of the infrastructure. We're standing up an 11-site simulcast cell. If you know what that means, it means you don't have much of a life. But that is the 11 towers that are in the middle of the county, and all the edge towers except the new tower at Minerva, which I think we're going to call the Marty Olson Living Memorial Tower.
Wrong, Marty.
Marty Chapman, that's it, Marty Chapman. Well, it was Marty, I'm happy.
Yeah, just call it the Marty.
Yeah, the Marty Living Memorial Tower. The prime site, which once again is very technologically oriented, is at the AEP Tower, which is right over here. It's the one that actually collects the signal from the other 11 towers, fires it up to Lake County. We have our very own, if you will, leading edge technology providers, Agile Networks, which are up on Market Street just north of downtown, that provides the backhaul for all Marcs towers statewide. And they provide both fiber optic backhaul and microwave backhaul at all sites. And Dick, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that when in the prior years before the upgrade of Marcs and the utilization of Agile, our biggest headache was that the copper T1 wires kept going down and then you had coverage issues. And from what I hear, that's no longer happening with Agile. So there you go. We got the right folks, and of course, we have extra leverage on Agile. Is there any Agile people here? Because if something goes down, we simply arrest them. We know where they live and we know what they drive. All right, the 3 primary dispatch centers. Pardon me?
They're in Canton. Agile. You didn't need to mention that.
Mayor, you got that?
We got him.
Chief, there you go. All right, the 3 primary dispatch centers. The big dispatch centers that covers the majority of police, fire, and EMS dispatch in Stark County is CANCOM, STARCOM, and the Red Center. Those are all tied directly to the core in Lake County, which gives us tremendous abilities to interoperate. In addition to those 3 primaries, we've worked with all the other dispatch centers, and we're still working with the other dispatch centers. That's North Canton, that's Alliance. Where's Alliance at? I haven't seen it here yet. That's Alliance, that's Minerva. I know there's a bunch of Minerva folks here, and that's up at CENTCOM, and I know, Chief, you had some questions, and they're being answered here today, and if you need more detail, obviously I'll get with you on that. But we've got those last 2 questions answered definitively, so I think we're all good to go. We are right now working on talk group planning, and all talk groups are, as if you're older and in the analog world, that's what we used to call a radio channel. We're finalizing our talk group planning, we're finalizing our fleet maps. We'll be getting to those, all those to Marcs within the next 2 to 3 weeks. Marcs will then do some works for us, and then it'll be time for the individual radio tuning and programming. So there's no reason that we can't have all of our radios, and Staley's, B&C, and Vasu isn't here, so it'll be easy to say this. There's no reason that we can't have all the radios in the county programmed and ready to go by the first couple of weeks in December. Now they're going to have to work real hard. And if I was you, I'd try to get you there, or get your radios to them early rather than late, because obviously that'll give you a little bit of benefit in the queue. So, next slide. All right, so very quickly, we'll just go over the towers in the county. This is kind of a busy slide. I'll tell you about the color here a little bit. The towers that'll be on the new system are down at Navarre on the high ground, I think south and pretty much straight south of Navarre. The one at Cloverdale, which is over in southeastern Massillon city limits. This is a new tower. We got rid of the Canal Fulton Tower, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit. A new tower up on Butterbridge, which is up on really high ground. We have the Hartville Tower, same spot as what we have now. We have the Alliance Tower. We have the Paris FAA Tower, which is also known as the Brant Luther Living Memorial Tower. We have the brand new Marty Tower, Minerva. We have the tower at Mapleton, which is down south of Mapleton, the Marcs Tower at East Sparta, and then we have the East Canton Tower just east of East Canton, Canton AEP, you all know where that's at, and then the Cromer Tower up on Cromer Hill. So those are the 12 tower sites in the county. Now realize that Marcs has at least 8 tower sites outside the county that are going to benefit, or we're going to benefit from. We will, just for those of you that are getting nervous about that, we will program our radios to always prefer our home towers, which simply means if you turn your radio on, it's going to search out and try to affiliate with the simulcast or the Minerva Tower, but if it can't do that, then it'll roam to Marshallville or Trail or one of the other towers that's outside the county. So that's good. Go ahead. Now, you really want to know about coverage. In fact, Rich, that's one of your questions, right? You wanted to know about how the coverage is going to work for your customer. Yes? Everybody wants to know how the coverage, yes. Good answer. I finally got the right answer. All right, so here's what we're doing. At the end of this month, we're doing coverage testing. Motorola is extremely good at these coverage tests. They always engineer the system so that they perform better than what they're required to do. We're doing it the last full week of this month, which starts on the 24th of September. We have divided the county into about 1,350 3/8 mile square grids. We will drive a vehicle through each one of those 1,350 grids. And when we get the vehicle in the grid, 2 things will happen. Number one, a couple of really smart Motorola computer wonks will be in the back seat, and they'll be doing separate bit error rates to make sure that the digital signal is square and not wavy. How's that for technology? And at the same time, we'll have either our driver or our passenger in the front seat keying the mic saying, "Can you hear me now?" And there'll be 3 people at Chief Jack's new dispatch center that'll be answering those cards and saying, "Yes, I can hear you," and they'll be writing down the information and so forth. There's going to be 4 teams doing that. We're still open to volunteers or observers and so forth. We want as many people to see this as you're interested, because it's a very powerful way to show that the system's working. Jackson Township Fire, Tracy Hogue has volunteered, Mike Crable, and one of your command vehicles to do the western third of the county. Correct? Correct. Canal Fulton PD Chief Swartz has volunteered a vehicle. Where you at, Chief? And you're going to do the central portion of the county. And for those of you that are here that are on the cop side, or it could be fire side, it doesn't matter. I think the chief could still use a couple of different people, maybe to be on deck if he needs some second person help during the latter part of the week. So if you want to be involved in this, see the chief, I guarantee you, he will volunteer. The SO, that's us. We'll do the eastern third of the county. And then after we're all done with that, Chief Jack and Canton Police and Fire and Chief Tommy is going to redo the 77 corridor from 30 north to the Summit County line, because those of you that know the system very well know that the in-building coverage and performance in that highly populated area is even more robust than the rest. So we'll actually test that area twice. Once testing it for portable in-stick, if you will, 2x4 type building coverage, and one testing it for brick and mortar like this building coverage. So for example, your radio will work in this building, even though we're surrounded by brick, both internally and externally, and you got a metal roof, your radio will work in this building. That's how the system is designed. Let's see. The radio consoles located down in the City Hall down in the basement will be recording and journalizing all tests. For anybody that's interested, we're doing a dress rehearsal next Friday. We'll start out in the parking lot of the SO because it's easy to get in and out of. We'll go through the parameters, and then first thing Monday morning, we'll all get in a circle and go 1, 2, 3, let's go, and we'll go out and test the radio system. That'll take a week or less. I'm extremely confident that the system will test out as good or better than advertised. So that's a good thing. So that's the coverage testing. And once again, this is the same map, but this is Motorola's, if you will, non-optimistic painting of where we'll have portable in-building coverage. So anywhere that's green, your radio is going to work in any building that's not, like a tomb or something like that. You'll notice that the areas where there isn't coverage is down in the ditches down where the old strip mining areas is. One of the benefits of that is many of those places are down along the creeks and runs, and you don't, and this, I know this sounds kind of scientific, but you don't need in-building portable coverage if you don't have a building. So we'll be good. Plus, this discounts the Marcs towers that are on the periphery. Next slide. So here's the go-live timelines, which is very important to all of us. We'll start the coverage testing, and we'll end the coverage testing for the majority of the sites at the end of this month. We will do a separate coverage test for the Minerva Tower probably mid-October, simply because once we turn up the new system, all of Dick Miller's current customers will go on the new system, and we'll be able to reallocate some of his gear to the Minerva Tower. So we'll test it in the October timeframe. We are working real hard on talk group sharing protocols. You're going to be getting a letter from the sheriff on this, and basically what it says is each of you have your own, at least one, and in many cases 2 of your own talk groups. You own them. Nobody else can use them unless you agree to share. Now, it's kind of hard to have an interoperable radio system if you don't share talk groups. But there's on the other hand, you may have some talk groups that you want to hold close so that you have a little bit more security as to who's listening and so forth. So within the next week to week and a half, you'll be getting a letter from the boss saying, okay, here's the talk groups and the sharing protocols we believe you want to have. Please look at your 1, 2, 10 talk groups, however many you have, and tell us if we have them marked correctly, because the 3 options are total sharing, anybody that needs them can have them. No sharing, which means you can't have them, you're not allowed to listen to them, and you're not going to be able to. Or, if you will, selective sharing, which means, for example, if you have a police officer on a special weapons team or whatnot, regardless of the department he or she's on, they will be sharing that talk group with with peers in other departments. So you'll be able to fill that form out, send it back to us, and instead of you then having to fill out one form for every department you want to share with, which would give us about, 10,000 of those forms countywide, we'll have one form that we'll provide to Marcs and say, here's our talk group sharing protocol. We'll also give that to our programmers. They'll know what the deal is, and then they'll work with you to finalize the programming, which we should be done late November at the latest. We'll be upgrading or uploading the radio console talk groups in November and December of this year. For those of you that are with the Red Center, knows the Red Center's remodeling their dispatch center. For those of you that's associated with Canton, you know that Canton's moving their dispatch center. And then for those of you that's associated with us, you know that we're remodeling ours. So there's a lot of engineering work going on behind the scenes and so forth. That's why we're saying late November on that. We fully believe that early adopters will be able to come on the system if their dispatch centers are ready by mid-November at the latest. That's what we're shooting for at DSO. There may be at least one other user that can go before that, and that is Minerva. If we get that tower stood up, you get all your radios programmed, you're kind of down there on your own, you can switch over to this system whenever you want. Probably going to be mid-November anyway, because we got to tune up that tower and so forth. But everybody doesn't have to wait till the last minute, and we encourage people not to wait till the last minute. We want to have everybody staged, every agency in the county staged to be ready to go right after New Year's. Now, we've always said we're going to turn on the new system on January 1st, 2019, but let's think about it. How many of you want to go from an old system to a new system as the clock strikes midnight on New Year's Eve? Probably not a good idea, because I suspect history tells us some of us will be busy. So what we're saying is, if you're ready, you can make the transition before. If you're not quite ready and you want to wait till that holiday madness is over, make the transition by the end of that week. We want all agencies on the new system by the 5th of January of next year. And to help you figure out whether you want to do that or not, how many of you is on the old system right now? Raise your hands. All right, the old system will be turned off. Click, no longer work on no later than January 31st of next year. That's really important because we're reusing the frequencies, some of the frequencies on the old system for the new system. So, if you don't hear anything but this and no user fees for 4 years, remember this. If you're on the old system, you're not going to be on it on February 1st because it isn't going to work. So, Dick Miller can tell us all kinds of stories about people that didn't want to leave the old Marcs system, but we're going to try to do it that way, Dick. You think we can make it?
Yeah, you can make it.
Good.
There'll still be a couple that won't.
Well, somebody will call and say my radio quit working, but it shouldn't be anybody that's in here today. All right, next, Chris. Okay, so here, everybody in here either represents one or both of these type agencies, either a public safety agency or a public service agency, or both. Public safety, police, fire, and EMS, public service, street departments, water departments, sanitary departments, SARTA. Is there anybody in here from SARTA? Good, we can talk about them. We don't have to worry about them. All right, so how many of you in here represent a public safety agency? All right, here's what you got to do in the next couple of months. You need to work with the project team to journalize the required Marcs documentation. We, the project team, will be contacting you, the end user public safety subscriber, this month to finalize the documentation with Marcs. And quite honestly, the first iteration, and Jennifer is here also, all wine from Marcs. So Jennifer, tell me if I'm saying this wrong, but the first iteration will be a one-page document that says who, what, when, where, how, and why. And the how and why is the paying entity will be the Board of Commissioners. And the who and what will be you folks. But it's a very simple form. We'll make damn sure that we know exactly how to fill the form out before we bother anybody. And we'll also make sure we got all the forms filled out before we bother you. That make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So, second, you work with the project team. Once again, that's us. And the preferred vendor to finalize the fleet maps. You don't have to do a whole lot on that, but you may want to have some input on that. And those of you that have been involved in that know what I'm talking about. You'll need to work with your dispatch centers to coordinate the go-live process. And once again, you won't have to worry about user fees until January 1st, 2023. That's the public safety agencies. How many of you in here represent one or more public service agencies? Street departments, SARTA, that kind of thing. Okay, here's the difference. Public service. Same thing. Work with project teams to journalize required Marcs documentation. You'll be contacted this month. Work with us on the preferred vendor to finalize fleet maps. For public service, the fleet maps are a lot easier. We met today with the county engineers and the county sanitary engineers, and their fleet map will basically have 2 talk groups. Most of you on the public safety side will have a couple hundred talk groups, so the public service folks are a little bit less complicated. You'll want to work with your dispatch services to coordinate the go-live process, and you'll be getting a bill Dear Public Service Agency from Marcs, sometime shortly on or before the first of the year, saying, here's how much you owe us for the first year, or the first quarter of 2019's Marcs usage fees. How soon before the first of the year, Jennifer, should they expect those bills to come out?
It will depend upon when they activate their devices, because we have it set to automatically invoice within 60 days of an activated ID. However, if they're not programmed, I would not expect them to see their first invoice until March.
Okay, but that will be from January 1st to like March 31st?
Correct.
Okay, so sometime in the first quarter, if you're a public service entity, you'll be getting a bill from Marcs. We're going to work very hard to make sure that when Jennifer generates that bill and you get it, there's no errors in that. So if you have 32 radios, the bill's going to be for 32 radios. Jennifer doesn't want it to be for 31. We don't want it to be for 33. So we're going to work real hard to make that happen. That make sense? All right. So the current annual fee per radio is $20 a month for all Marcs users. Now the good news is right now the General Assembly subsidizes that $20 a month by $10 a month for all non-state users. So I believe we can expect that bill to end up being $10 a month at least through July or June 30th of 2019. Correct?
Correct.
And then if the General Assembly continues to subsidize it, which they have done for the last 5 or 6 years now, then it'll still be 10. But as Bill Smith said, smart thing to do would be budget for 20, plan on 20, or plan and budget for 20, and then if it's 10, God bless America. All right, any questions on public service agencies versus public safety? Remember, public safety, police, fire, and EMS, public service, street departments, water departments, sanitary departments, sergeant. All right, next one, Chris. Okay, so here's the other things that we have to do collectively. We will accelerate the interaction with you to ensure agreements are in place, fleet maps are completed, and radios are programmed. And of course, a big player in that is either B&C, Staley's, or VASU. And you all have one of those generally as your primary programmers and radio folks. We will carefully and completely document all agency and individual radio information so that when we turn this over to Jennifer at Marcs, there's no mistakes in it. That we have every person accounted for, we have every radio accounted for. Now, as individual agencies, it will help a lot if you provide a specific point of contact for efficient follow-up. Couple things here. Hopefully you signed in. If you did sign in, this would be a miracle. I can actually read all of your email addresses, because email addresses now are kind of like signatures. You just get used to going, but at any rate, I think I got every cop shop and every fire shop in the county. But if you are one of those public service folks, we may still have to reach out to you, although I think we got most of those folks covered. Expect a lot of interaction from this point forward. We want to make sure that nobody is confused or lost or discouraged. And we're continuing, this is a request from the fire services, we will continue to work with the fire services on the paging solution, the Unication pagers. I think the last little flurry T-Hogue, according to Unication, the problems down there in Kentucky is because they're in some kind of hardened buildings with metal roofs, but they're working on that solution. I think the good news is they answered us right away. Once Derek sent it to them, they answered probably within, what, half an hour, Derek? All right, so we have 2 minutes and 21 seconds for open questions and answers. And I know we've thrown a lot at you. The next slide is going to have all of our emails. So what I'd say is if it's a tough question, send it to anybody but me. If it's an easy question, there's my email. And I'm being facetious. Hit me with anything you have, and if I can't answer it because it's more of a strategic question, then I'll pass it up the chain. So, any questions right now? When we're done here, when the SCOG continues the meeting, anybody that's not going to stay for the SCOG, we'll be outside and we can answer all the questions you want. Has everybody signed in a sign-in sheet of one kind or the other? Everybody? Good. So, boss, it's 33 minutes and 30 seconds. So I think I met your requirements.
You did. Thank you very much. You even left a couple minutes for questions, so that's great. This was really the work of a number of people put this together to make sure that we got the information out to you, the users, okay? And so, honestly, please don't be shy. If you have questions now that are burning in your mind that you need to ask, we're willing to take the time to try to vet through those questions. If there's a question that you'd rather put in writing and get an answer, we can do that as well. But one of the reasons we invited you here tonight was so that you did have the opportunity to ask questions. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them.
Major, what's the status on the user fees being paid by the state after the 4 years? Was that something that was being discussed at one point?
All right. From day one, since I think January or February of 2002, the state has billed every user of the system $20 a month per radio. It's never went up, it's never went down, although we now have the subsidy from the state. The question remains, and there are folks in Columbus that are sensitive to the fact that that user fee per radio causes either a real or a perceived hurdle to get over to come on the system. So there are folks in Columbus that advocate another type of payment methodology, if you will. As a matter of fact, the sheriff, when he was the director of public safety or the assistant director, was on a task force back in 2009 that says we need to find a dedicated source. So they're still looking for a dedicated source. And I believe that we need to do what we can to continue to encourage them to do that. I don't think it would bother Jennifer if she no longer had to worry about sending out 120,000 bills a month. Pardon me? Or tracking them down after they don't pay. So that's the answer to that. I will say, am I allowed to say this, boss? We have somebody in the General Assembly that is cognizant of the issue.
Absolutely.
And that's Kurt Schuring. So I think we have a little bit of leverage there.
So if you don't have a question and you have a comment, we'd be happy to hear your comments as well.
Sheriff, you mentioned at the outset that this is all possible because of the Stark County taxpayers with the justice system sales tax. Could you, or Major Anderson, or maybe the both of you, summarize for the tax-paying public what benefit there is to Stark County citizens to have this advance in our radio communications?
Well, I think I'd start out by saying, as you heard in the presentation earlier, we are the last large county to go to the Marcs system. All the other counties in the state that have a population equal to ours or greater than ours have already migrated towards either being on the Marcs system or a like system. Is that correct, Dick? That they can communicate with Marcs. So that gets you the interoperable communication. So the advantage is, I need to turn to the mass of folks to say, the advantage is that, 15, 16 years ago, we had a law enforcement officer in this county who was killed. In part, his death was as a result of not having, there was fragmented communications. There was a pursuit by the Highway Patrol that led into the city of Massillon. The information on the driver in the pursuit had a gun, was passed along, but it passed along by telephone or other methods, and it did not get to that officer. He was not aware of it, and he lost his life. And so I know I've talked to Safety Director Smith about this, and that's paramount in this county. We have not forgot that. And we owe that to not only the law enforcement and safety people in the county, but to all the citizens of the county to be able to communicate one-on-one.